My son locked me inside my own house. I heard the click of every single lock, his footsteps walking away, the engine of his car fading into the night. And I stood there, 82 years old, betrayed by my own blood. But Charles made a mistake, one that would cost him everything. Because that night, while he thought he had me under control, I went down the stairs. And what I found down there would change everything. If this story touches your soul, subscribe to the channel, William's Revenge Stories. Every day I share real stories of men like me who have lived through betrayals that can never be forgotten. Leave us a comment telling us where you are watching from. The sound was the first thing. A click. Dry. Mechanical. All the locks in the house activating at the same time. I was standing in the living room, still holding my dirty dinner plate, when I heard it. I froze, confused. Then came the second sound. The steps of my son walking away down the gravel driveway. The engine of his car starting up, and I ran to the door. I pushed it. Nothing. Blocked. Charles. I banged on the glass. Charles, what the hell? But the taillights of his Mercedes were already disappearing into the darkness, and I was left there with the palm of my hand still warm against the cold glass. My son had just locked me in my own house, like a dog. My name is Arthur Anderson. I am 82 years old. I founded Anderson Logistics 53 years ago with a single old truck and my two hands. Today it is one of the largest logistics networks in the South. I have survived economic crises, kidnappings, betrayals by partners, the death of my wife 6 months ago, but never did I imagine that my own son, my only blood, would do this. I tried the door again as if it had been a mistake, as if it would magically open. Nothing. I ran to the garage door, blocked. The kitchen door, the service door, all of them. The electronic panel next to each one blinked red. Red like blood, like betrayal. Charles, can you hear me? My voice sounded desperate, pathetic. I banged on the walls. I searched for my cell phone. I unlocked it. No signal. The bars showed 0. Impossible. There is always a signal here. I tried to call. No service. I called again. Nothing. I went to the landline in the kitchen. I picked up the receiver. Dead silence. Not even a dial tone. The line was cut. I stood there with the useless phone in my hand, and something broke inside me. It was not fear yet. It was something worse. It was disbelief. The feeling that the world you knew no longer exists, that the rules changed and no one told you. My son, my blood, locked me in. The house felt different, bigger. The walls seemed to move away. The ceiling seemed to rise. I walked through the living room. My steps echoed. Everything was the same furniture, the same paintings, the same crystal lamp that Grace chose 30 years ago, but everything felt strange, hostile, as if the house itself knew it was no longer my home. It was my prison. I sat in the armchair, Grace's chair, where she used to knit in the afternoons. I ran my hand over the worn fabric. It still smelled like her soft perfume. Lavender. I closed my eyes. Grace, what do I do? But Grace died 6 months ago. Sleeping. Peaceful. At 83 years old, and I was alone. Completely alone. With a son who had just become my jailer. How much time passed, I do not know. Half an hour. An hour. I was sitting in the dark when I heard something. A hum. It came from above. The cameras. The damn security cameras Charles installed a month ago to take care of you. Dad. The red lights blinked in the corners of the ceiling. He was watching me. From wherever he was, my son was watching me. Like an experiment. Like an animal in a cage. I stood up. I looked directly at the nearest camera. Is this what you wanted, Charles? To see me suffer? My voice trembled. Why, what did I do to you? But cameras do not answer. They only observe. They only record. They only watch. Then came the rage. Hot. Explosive. Rising from my stomach to my throat. I grabbed a vase from the table. I raised it. I was about to throw it at the camera, but I stopped. No, I am not going to give him the pleasure of seeing me destroy my own house. I am not going to fall apart. I lowered the vase. I breathed. Once, twice, 3 times. Slowly, like the doctor taught me after my heart attack 5 years ago. Calm down, Arthur. Think. Charles did this for a reason. It was not an outburst. It was planned. The new locks, my updated phone, Eleanor fired 3 weeks ago. Everything fit together. But why? What does he gain by locking me up? Eleanor. My God. Eleanor. 40 years working in this house. She saw Charles grow up. She took care of him when Grace and I worked 18 hours a day. And 3 weeks ago, my son fired her. It is necessary, Dad. Cutbacks. I exploded. That woman is Family Charles. You cannot fire her like that. He looked at me with that new coldness he has. It is done, Dad. I signed the papers. Eleanor came to say goodbye. Crying, she hugged me. Mr. Arthur, she whispered, that boy has changed. He is not the child I raised. Be careful. I gave her extra money. I told her everything would be fine. Lies. I did not know that everything was about to explode either, that Charles was building my cage, and I let him. I walked to the window. Outside the night was calm, clear, the moon almost full. In the distance the city lights shined. Life went on. Cars drove on the highway. Families were having dinner. People laughed, loved, lived, and I was here, trapped, invisible, forgotten. I put my forehead against the glass. It was cold, very cold. Is this how it all ends, Arthur? After 82 years of fighting, building, sacrificing, locked up by your own son. Waiting for what? For him to come tomorrow, the day after. Never. No. No, sir. I do not give up like this. Not after everything I lived. Not after everything I survived. I stepped away from the window, and then I remembered. The basement. I had not been down there in 3 weeks, since before Charles started with all this. I turned my head toward the door. It is in the hallway next to the kitchen, an old wooden door that almost no one notices. Charles never went down there, not as a child, not as an adult. It is dirty, he used to say. It smells like mold. Perfect. Because what is down there he does not know about. No one knows. Only Grace and I. And she is gone. I walked toward that door, slowly as if I were waking up from a nightmare or entering one. I still did not know which. I put my hand on the knob. It was freezing. I turned it. The door opened with a creak. The stairs descended into darkness. The smell rose immediately. Earth, old concrete, something metallic. I searched for the switch. The light flickered, a yellowish bulb hanging from a wire. It barely illuminated the first few steps. The rest was darkness. But I knew every inch of that basement. I built it, with my own hands, more than 40 years ago. And down there is what Charles never imagined. What could change everything? What could save me, or destroy him? I went down the first step, then the second. The wood creaked under my weight. My legs are not what they used to be. 82 years are heavy. But I kept going down, step by step. The air became colder, denser. The light from above grew weaker. And I thought about Charles, about his face when he turned those locks from his phone, about his car driving away, about his coldness. He thought he won, that he has me controlled, that I am a helpless old man trapped in a house. But Charles made a mistake, the worst mistake of his life, because I built this house, and I also built what is underneath, and that night I was not the one who was trapped. 1972, I was 29 years old. Grace was 28. We had been married for 2 years. We lived in a rented room downtown, 1 room, 1 bed, a 2-burner stove, and a dream so big it did not fit in those 4 walls. I worked at a transport company, a driver, 12 hours a day. Grace was a secretary at an accounting firm. At night we counted the money we had saved. We put it on the bed, crumpled bills, coins. How much do we have, honey? She counted slowly. With that concentration she had. $2,130. I smiled. Closer, closer, she repeated, and she kissed me. We were saving to buy a truck, our truck, to start our own business. In 1973, we bought that truck. Old. From 71. Faded red. The engine sounded like it was going to explode at any moment, but it was ours. We christened it the Grace. She laughed. Really, Arthur? Of course. Without you, this does not exist. I started doing independent freight, furniture, construction materials, whatever it was. Grace handled the accounting, in notebooks, by hand. Every dollar that came in, every dollar that went out. We slept 4 hours a night, we worked 20, but we were happy, because we were building it together. And one day, driving on the outskirts of the city, I saw a vacant lot. Big, abandoned, with a view of the skyline in the distance. I parked. I got out. I walked through that land, and I knew. Here, Grace, here we are going to build our house. It took us 5 years. 5 years of ant labor, buying the land, saving for materials, brick by brick. I laid the foundation on Sundays, my only day off. Grace mixed the cement. She got her hands dirty. She broke her nails, but she never complained. We are building our future, honey, brick by brick. By 1978, the house was ready. It was not a mansion yet. It was simple. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom, but it was ours. The day we moved in, Grace cried. We did it, Arthur. We did it, honey. That night we slept on the floor. We still did not have furniture, only an old mattress. But hugging there, looking at the ceiling I built, we were the richest people in the world. The 80s changed everything. My business exploded. 1 truck became 5, then 10, then 20. Big contracts. Major companies trusting me. The money poured in. We expanded the house. 2nd floor, more rooms, gardens, a pool. It became what Charles knew, a mansion. But fear also arrived. The city in the 80s was a silent battlefield. Businessmen kidnapped. Every month there was news. They found Mr. So-and-so executed. The family of Mr. Someone paid $3 million in ransom. I hired bodyguards, 2 armed men who followed me everywhere. Grace lived in terror. What if something happens to you? I could not answer her, because I was afraid too. For her, for Charles, who had already been born, for everything we had built. 1985 was the worst year. 2 businessmen friends of mine were kidnapped the same week. One returned after paying ransom. Traumatized, beaten, he was never the same again. The other was found on a highway, dead, with a bullet in his head. I went to the funeral. I saw the widow, the children, and that night, when I got home, Grace was waiting for me, sitting in the living room, with the lights off. I cannot take it anymore, Arthur. Her voice was a whisper. I cannot keep living with this fear, waiting for the call, the news, the body. I hugged her. She was trembling. We need a plan, honey, a way out, just in case. What kind of way out? She looked at me with red eyes from crying. I took a deep breath. The idea had been growing in my head for weeks. A tunnel, an escape route. If they come for us, we disappear. Grace looked at me as if I were crazy. A tunnel, like in the movies, like in real life, honey. I have seen maps, blueprints. It is possible. She remained silent, thinking. Then she nodded. Where would it lead? To a place where no one would look for us. A humble neighborhood, a simple house. We would be invisible. We did not sleep that night. We planned. We drew. We calculated. And by dawn, we had a plan. One that would save our lives. Or so we thought then. We did not know that 40 years later, it would save me from my own son. Mr. Robert Sullivan, civil engineer, an old friend of my father. He died 15 years ago. May he rest in peace. He was the only person outside of Grace and me who knew about the tunnel. I explained what I needed. He asked no questions. Arthur, this is going to take time, and money, and a lot of secrecy. I have all three things, Robert. We worked at night, just the three of us, for 6 months. We dug from the basement of the house, 200 meters underground. We reinforced with concrete, with steel beams. We installed rudimentary ventilation, lights powered by an independent electrical line. And at the end of the tunnel, we bought a little house in a neighborhood called St. Joseph. Humble, working class, 5 blocks from our mansion, but in another world completely. We bought it under the name of a shell company. No one knew it was ours. Not even Charles ever knew. The little house was perfect for its purpose. Small, discreet. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom. Old furniture bought second-hand. Simple clothes stored in the closet. Cans of food in the pantry. Bottled water. Blankets. Everything necessary to disappear if we had to disappear. You never know when we are going to need it, Grace used to say. And she was right. Although thank God in the 80s we never had to use it. The kidnappings eventually decreased. The 90s arrived. Security improved. But Grace insisted. We have to keep it, Arthur, always ready. You never know. And I listened to her, as always. Every 2 months we went to the little house, sometimes every month. It was our secret ritual. I changed my elegant clothes for jeans and a simple shirt. Grace took off her jewelry. She tied back her hair. We looked like a common couple from the neighborhood. We went down to the basement. We opened the hidden door behind the old bookshelf. We walked through the tunnel with flashlights, 200 meters of silence and darkness, and we emerged in the little house. We spent hours there, cleaning, airing out, checking that everything worked, but also being us far from the weight of the company, from the responsibilities. We drank black coffee in cheap cups. We sat on the back porch. We watched the neighbors, children playing in the street, music from old radios. Simple life, real. Here we are, more ourselves, right, Arthur? Yes, honey. Here we are, just Arthur and Grace, without last names, without a company, without fear. The years passed. Charles grew up. He graduated. He entered the company. He became financial director. Brilliant with numbers, cold with people. Grace and I got old, but we never stopped going to the little house. Even when there was no longer any real danger, even when the tunnel seemed unnecessary, we kept going, because it was our emotional refuge, our shared secret, and Grace always said the same thing. Someday it will be useful, Arthur. I can feel it. Dangers change shape, but they always return. I laughed. Honey, it is not necessary anymore. The world changed. She looked at me seriously, with that quiet wisdom she had. The world never changes that much, Arthur. It only changes its mask. She was right. As always. As with everything. 6 months ago, Grace died, sleeping, peaceful, just as she wanted. 83 years well lived. The funeral was massive. The whole company, partners, friends. Charles received condolences with a serious face, firm handshakes, professional gaze, not a single tear. Eleanor hugged me and cried more than I did, and when everyone left, I stayed looking at her grave. Grace, my love, what do I do now without you? The wind moved the flowers, and I swear I heard her voice. Keep everything ready, Arthur. Always. And I did. A month ago I went to the little house. For the last time, I thought then. I cleaned. I checked. I changed the batteries in the flashlights. I verified the bottled water. Everything worked. And when I closed the door to leave, I felt that strange feeling, as if Grace were whispering from the other side. It is going to be useful, honey. Soon. Now standing in this basement with my son having locked me upstairs, I understand. Grace always knew. Dangers return. Only this time the danger has my blood, and my last name. Grace's funeral was on a Tuesday. Gray sky, threat of rain that never came. I was standing in front of the closed casket. She looked so peaceful when I found her that morning, as if she were simply sleeping, and people filed past, handshakes, hugs. We are very sorry, Mr. Anderson. Charles was by my side. Impeccable black suit, tie perfectly knotted. He received condolences as if it were a business meeting. Firm, controlled, without a tear. I could not stop shaking. Eleanor had to hold me when I almost fell. But Charles checked his watch, discreetly, as if he were in a hurry, as if his mother's funeral were a procedure. When it ended, he put his hand on my shoulder. "Stay calm, Dad. I will take care of everything." And he left. He had urgent matters. Eleanor stayed. She took me home. She made me tea. She sat with me in silence. My son did not return that night. The first weeks after the funeral were confusing. I floated in a fog of pain. I could not sleep in our bed. I slept in the armchair in the living room, staring at the ceiling, waiting to hear her steps or voice. "Arthur, come to sleep." But there was nothing, only silence. And in that silence, Charles moved. He arrived at the house with briefcases full of documents. "Dad, I need you to sign this. Contract renewals." He put them in front of me. I looked at the papers without really understanding what they said. The letters moved. "What is it exactly?" "Dad, it is routine. Trust me, I studied for this, and I signed. Once, twice, 10 times. He took the papers away. "Thanks, Dad. Now rest." And he left. I stayed there with the pen in my hand, feeling that something was not right, but I could not think. The pain for Grace filled everything. A month after the funeral, Charles arrived with different papers. "Dad, I need you to sign these powers of attorney. It is to speed up decisions in the company while you recover." I looked up. "Powers of attorney? Yes. So I can sign in your name. Temporarily? So I do not bother you every time there is something urgent." Something in my stomach churned. "I do not know, Charles. That is a lot of power." He sighed. "Impatient. Dad, Mom died a month ago. You are not well. The company needs quick decisions. Do you trust me or not?" He looked straight at me. With those eyes that used to be warm, now they were. What? Cold. Calculating. "Of course I trust you, son. Then sign." And I signed. He smiled. He put the papers away quickly. "Perfect. Now everything will be easier." And yes, it was easier. For him. I almost never saw documents again after that. Eleanor started whispering things to me in the kitchen when Charles was not there. "Mr. Arthur, Mr. Charles came yesterday with a new accountant. They were reviewing all of Mrs. Grace's files." "What files?" "The personal ones, sir, her accounts, her investments, everything." I frowned. "Well, I suppose the will needs to be settled." "No, Mr. Arthur. It was not the lawyer. It was a private accountant that no one knows." Something cold ran down my back. And what did they do? I do not know. They asked me to leave them alone. Eleanor looked at me with concern. "Boss, I do not want to interfere, but Mr. Charles is changing things, and he is not telling you." I should have listened to her. I should have investigated. But I was tired, so tired. Eleanor, Charles is my son. He is handling things while I recover. That is all. She nodded, but in her eyes there was fear. Conversations with Charles became different. Before, when Grace was alive, he came to dinner on Sundays. He told us about his work, about his plans. We discussed strategies. We laughed. Now he arrived, ate in silence, and left. I tried to talk. "How are things at Logistics North?" "Fine." "And the new contract with the oil refinery?" "In process." "Do you need my opinion on—" "No, Dad. I handled it." Short answers, evasive looks, as if I were a nuisance. One afternoon I gathered the courage. "Charles, I feel like you do not talk to me anymore, like before." He put down his fork. He looked at me, and in his look there was something that froze my blood. Impatience. Contempt almost. "Dad, you are not up to date with the company anymore. Things changed. It is better that you rest and let me work." "But it is my company. It was yours. Now it is ours, and soon it will be mine." He said it like that, cold, direct, and he kept eating as if nothing happened. 3 weeks ago, Charles arrived early. Unusual. He always arrived after work. But that day it was 9 in the morning. He entered without knocking. "Dad, we need to talk. I was having breakfast with Eleanor. She served him coffee. He did not even look at her." "Dad, I decided to make changes in the house. Necessary cutbacks." "What kind of cutbacks?" "Personnel." "Eleanor has to go." The silence was brutal. Eleanor dropped her spoon. I stood up. "What did you say?" "Eleanor has to go. Her salary is too high. 40 years of seniority. Bonuses, pension. We cannot pay it." I felt the rage explode. "Charles, that woman raised you. She worked here since before you were born." "Exactly for that reason, Dad. Her salary is unsustainable. I do not care about the money. Not you, but I manage the finances now." And I say she goes. Eleanor was crying. I was shaking. "You cannot do this." Charles took out a paper. "I already did. I signed her settlement this morning. She has a week to leave." And he left it on the table, like a sentence. That week was horrible. Eleanor packed her things crying. 40 years of her life in cardboard boxes. I tried to give her extra money. "Eleanor, take it. It is the least I can do." She shook her head. "Mr. Arthur, it is not about the money. It is just that it hurts me to leave this house. To leave you all. To leave you. Alone with him." "With who?" "With Charles." "Yes, sir. That boy changed. He is not the child I took care of. There is something dark in him. Something that scares me. Eleanor, he is my son. I know, Mr. Arthur. But sometimes blood means nothing. Be careful, please." The day she left, she hugged me at the door. She cried on my shoulder. "If you need me, find me, whatever it is, at any hour." And she walked away down the gravel path, alone, with her boxes. I watched her walk away, and a part of me went with her. The last connection to Grace, to the good times, gone. A month before all this, Charles had arrived with a technician. "Dad, we are going to modernize security. Electronic locks, the latest technology." I was still stunned by Grace's death, apathetic, without strength to argue. "For what, Charles? The normal locks work fine." "Dad, this is safer. Everything is controlled from the phone. If something happens to you, I can open it from wherever I am, help you." It sounded logical, concerned, I do not know. "Dad, do it for me, for my peace of mind, to know that you are safe." And I agreed. I let them install locks on every door, electronic panels, cameras in every corner. "All for your safety, Dad." Safety. That word I heard 20 times that day. The technician worked for hours. Charles supervised everything. He tested every lock from his phone. "Perfect," he said. "Now you are protected." Protected or trapped? I still did not know which. A week after installing the locks, Charles arrived and held out his hand. "Dad, give me your cell phone. I need to update it. Update it." "Yes. The operating system is old. There are security flaws. Give me 2 days and I will return it like new." I gave him the phone. Why not? He was my son. 2 days later, he returned. Ready? Updated, faster, safer. But something felt different. The apps were in other places. The settings had changed. I tried calling a friend. It did not work well. "Charles, this is weird. It is normal, Dad. It is the new system. You get used to it." But I never got used to it, because it really never worked well. Now I understand. He did not update it. He blocked it. He limited it. He cut off my communication, and I said nothing. Too tired, too broken, too alone. The last 2 weeks I stopped going to the office. It made no sense. Charles handled everything. One day my assistant of 30 years, Martin, called me from his personal cell phone. "Mr. Arthur, I do not want to interfere, but at the board they are saying things." "What things, Martin?" That you are not well anymore, that you are confused, that sometimes you do not remember conversations. Mr. Charles has been sowing doubts about your capacity. I felt the floor move. Charles said that, not directly, but in private meetings with the main shareholders. He tells them that you need to retire for your own good. Martin, I am perfectly fine. I know Mr. Arthur. I know you. But them, they believe him. He is his son. Why would he lie? I hung up. I stared at the phone, and everything clicked. The signatures, the powers of attorney. Eleanor fired, the locks, my phone, everything. Charles was not helping me. He was preparing my disappearance, and I let him do it all. I did not want to see what was obvious. The signs were there, screaming, but I was blind. Blind with pain for grace, blind with trust in my son, blind with exhaustion and loneliness, until that night. Tuesday, when we ate in silence, when he stood up, when he walked to the door, when he took out his phone, when I heard that click of all the locks activating at the same time, when I saw him on the other side of the glass looking at me with absolute coldness, when his car drove away leaving me locked in that moment, my eyes opened. Everything made horrible and perfect sense, and I knew my son was not protecting me. He was eliminating me, and I had signed my own death sentence. 3 hours passed, 3 hours walking through the house like a ghost, looking at the walls, the cameras, feeling the cage closing on me, and then something changed inside me. Sadness turned into rage, rage into determination. I planted myself in the middle of the living room. I looked directly at the camera watching me, and I said out loud, "No, sir. I am not going to stay here like an animal waiting for your next movement. I built this house, Charles, and you. You do not know everything that is in it." I turned around. I walked toward the hallway, toward the basement door, and a bitter smile crossed my face, because Charles made a mistake. He thought he knew this house, but he never went down those stairs. He never knew what his mother and I kept down there, and that was going to be his ruin. I opened the basement door. The cold air rose, that smell of earth and concrete that brought me so many memories. I searched for the switch. The light turned on, weak, yellowish, illuminating the wooden steps. I went down slowly. My knees protested. 82 years do not forgive. But I kept going, step by step. The basement was not big. About 20 square meters. Boxes stacked in the corners. Old tools. A metal shelf against the back wall. There. Always there. I walked toward it. I touched it. It was cold, covered in dust. A month ago I cleaned it when I came to check everything. Everything was exactly as I left it. As Grace and I left it for 40 years, working, waiting. "Thank you, my love," I whispered. "You were always right." I put my hands on the sides of the shelf. I searched for the mechanism, a latch hidden behind the right frame. I found it. Cold, metallic. I pressed it. Click. Soft, precise. The shelf moved only an inch, but enough. I pushed it to the left. It slid on hidden rails. Mr. Robert installed them perfectly, and it revealed what was behind. A door, of steel, painted the same color as the wall, invisible if you did not know it was there. I ran my hand over the cold surface. My heart was beating hard. It had been a month since I entered, but it had existed for 40 years. Our secret, our salvation, and now my only way out. I turned the handle. The door opened with a sigh, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Total darkness on the other side, but I knew every inch of that path. I entered. I searched for the flashlight I always left on the hook next to the entrance. There it was. I turned it on. The beam of light cut the darkness. And there it was. The tunnel, 6 feet wide, 8 feet high, reinforced concrete walls, roof with steel beams. The floor was even, a little irregular but walkable. Mr. Robert did a perfect job. To the left, every 10 meters, there was a bulb connected to an independent electrical line. I turned them on. One by one, they lit up. Yellow and weak light, but sufficient. The tunnel extended in front of me, 200 meters to the north, toward freedom, toward the little house that no one knew was mine, toward the life Charles thought he had taken from me. I took the first step, then the second, and I started walking, leaving behind the prison, walking toward my salvation. The tunnel smelled of humidity, of wet earth, of old metal. My steps echoed. The echo accompanied me. Left, right, left, right. The flashlight in my hand trembled a little, not from fear, from anticipation, from contained rage. The walls were damp in some parts, in others dry. I ran my hand over the concrete. Firm, solid. After more than 40 years, it was still perfect. "You did a good job, Mr. Robert," I murmured. My voice sounded strange in the closed space. I kept walking. 50 meters, 100 meters. The bulbs illuminated the path. Shadows danced on the walls. And with each step, I felt something grow inside me. It was not just relief. It was power. Charles thought he had me controlled, but I was walking free beneath his feet, and he did not even know it. 190 meters. The stairs. There they were, going up, toward the little house. 10 concrete steps. I climbed them slowly. My legs burned. At the end, another steel door. I pushed it. It opened into a small room, the storage room of the little house. Dark. I closed the tunnel door behind me. I searched for the switch on the wall. I found it. Light. The bulb illuminated the room. There were the boxes Grace and I left. Canned food. Bottled water. Blankets. Everything in order. Everything ready. Just as I left it a month ago. I opened the door that led to the kitchen. I entered. The smell of the little house hit me. Dust. Old wood. But also home. More home than the mansion now, because here there were no cameras. There were no electronic locks. There was no traitor son watching. Here, I was free. I went to the bedroom. I opened the closet. There were the clothes we kept. Old blue jeans, plaid cotton shirts, worn shoes. I took off the silk pajamas I was wearing. I put on the pants, the shirt, the shoes. I looked at myself in the small cracked mirror hanging on the door. I did not recognize myself. It was not Mr. Arthur Anderson, owner of Anderson Logistics. It was just a common old man, a man from the neighborhood, someone invisible, perfect. I combed my hair with my hands. I washed my face in the bathroom with cold water. The mirror returned my gaze, and I smiled, for the first time in weeks, a real smile, because Charles thought he had me locked in the mansion, but I was here, 5 blocks away, free, and he had no idea. I opened the front door of the little house, slowly. The night air entered, fresh, clean. It smelled of food, of wood smoke, of life. I stepped out onto the small porch. The street was quiet. It was almost 11 at night. Some lights on in the neighboring houses. A dog barking in the distance. Country music coming from a radio. Normal, daily, beautiful. I took a step, then another. I went down the 3 steps of the porch. I stepped on the dirt street, and I breathed, deep. The air filled my lungs, so different from the stale air of the mansion prison. This air tasted like freedom. I walked to the corner. I looked south, toward where my house was. I could see the lights in the distance. Only 5 blocks away, Charles was there, or maybe not. Maybe he was in his apartment, checking the cameras, watching me sleep, not knowing the bed was empty, that I was here, free, mocking him. A laugh escaped me, bitter, victorious. I stood there on that humble street, an 82-year-old man dressed like any neighbor, invisible, forgotten, free, and the irony hit me with brutal force. Charles locked me up to control me, to isolate me, to destroy me slowly. But what he really did was free me, because now I could move without anyone knowing, without bodyguards, without chauffeurs, without employees reporting my movements. I could be no one, and being no one, I could do everything. I could investigate, discover, understand what the hell my son was plotting, why he locked me up, what he planned to do with me, and how how I was going to stop him, because I was not going to sit waiting for my fate. No, sir. If Charles wanted war, war there would be, but one that he never saw coming. I returned to the little house. It was almost 2 in the morning. The neighborhood slept. I entered. I closed the door. I changed back. The elegant clothes. The pajamas. I put the simple clothes in the closet. I went down to the storage room. I opened the tunnel door. Darkness welcomed me. I turned on the flashlight, and I started the way back. Every step echoed differently now. It was not escape. It was strategic return, because Charles could not know. Not yet. I needed him to think his plan was working, that I was broken, controlled. 200 meters back, the bulbs illuminating, the echo of my steps. And when I reached my basement, when I closed the secret door, when I moved the shelf into place, I smiled. I went up the stairs, returned to my room. I lay in my bed, and I waited for dawn. I waited for Charles, because I knew he would come, to verify his prisoner. At 9 in the morning, I heard the car, the gravel crunching, the front door opening, with his phone, of course, and his footsteps entering. Dad, his voice, fake concern. I got up slowly. I put on my robe. I left the room, with a tired face, defeated, like a finished old man. Charles was in the living room, impeccable suit, evaluating gaze. "Good morning, Dad. Did you sleep well?" He looked me up and down, searching. For what? Signs of panic, of desperation. I gave him exactly that. "Charles, why? Why did you lock me in?" My voice trembled. "Perfect," he sighed, as if it were painful. "Dad, it is for your own good. You are not well. You need to rest. Be calm. But the doors are for security, so nothing happens to you." He looked at me with that coldness I now recognized. "I will be coming to see you, bringing you food, everything you need. Trust me." Defeated, broken, he smiled. He thought he won. He left. And I stayed there, acting, because now the game had begun, and an advantage, a secret. And with that secret, I was going to destroy his entire plan. The second night after Charles verified me, I waited until 10. The cameras blinked red. He was watching me, or so he thought. I lay down dressed. I turned off the light. I counted to 1,000, slowly. Then I got up. I went down to the basement in complete silence. My steps made no noise. After 82 years, you know how to move without the floorboards creaking. I opened the secret door. I entered the tunnel. This time I did not turn on all the lights. Only the flashlight. Less trace. Less chance of something being seen from above. I walked the 200 meters like a ghost. I went up the stairs. I entered the little house. I changed clothes. And I went out. The night air welcomed me. Fresh, free. I sat on the porch, on the wooden step that creaked a little, and I breathed. Just breathed. Without cameras. Without Charles. Just me and the starry night. I had been sitting there for maybe 20 minutes when I saw movement in the house next door. A light came on. The door opened. A man came out. Older, maybe 70 years old. Blue jeans, white t-shirt, sandals. He stretched, yawned, and then he saw me. He froze, just like me. We looked at each other for a few seconds that seemed eternal. Then he raised his hand, a shy greeting. I did the same. He approached, slowly, like someone who does not want to scare a wild animal. "Good evening, sir." His voice was hoarse, worn but kind. I did not know anyone lived here. This house has been empty for years. He reached the low fence that separated our porches. "I am Ray Jenkins, your neighbor." He extended his hand over the fence. I shook it. Rough, strong, worker's hands. "Eddie." I lied. First name that occurred to me. "Eddie Vance." Ray smiled, teeth a little crooked, but the smile was genuine. "Real." "Just moved in, Mr. Eddie." I nodded, something like that, looking for peace. Getting away from the noise. It was not a lie, just not the whole truth. "Ah, well, here you found the right place. This neighborhood is quiet, People work, come home, do not mess with anyone. He scratched his head. Do you live alone? Yes, alone. The word came out sadder than I expected. Ray nodded, as if he understood. Me too. My wife died 3 years ago. The boys went north. They left me the house and nothing else. There was silence. But it was not awkward. It was shared. 2 old men alone in the night. Do you like coffee, Mr. Eddy? He asked suddenly. Very much. Then tomorrow at 7 I expect you. I am an early riser, and I make the best pot coffee you will ever taste. I smiled. I will be there, Mr. Ray. That night I slept in the little house for the first time in years, in the simple bed with sheets that smelled musty. But I slept deeply, without nightmares, without waking up every hour thinking about Charles. When I opened my eyes, the sun came through the window without curtains. It was 6:30. I got up. I washed in the small bathroom. The mirror showed me a different old man, not the businessman, not the prisoner, just a man. I dressed in the simple clothes, and at 7 sharp I knocked on Ray's door. He opened smiling, punctual. I like it. His house was small, clean, photos on the walls. Children, grandchildren he probably never met. The kitchen smelled of freshly brewed coffee. Sit down, Mr. Eddy. He pointed to a wooden chair next to a small table. I sat down. He poured 2 cups, black coffee, steaming. I took a sip, and God, it was good, real, honest, like everything in that place. Ray sat in front of me. And what brought you here, Mr. Eddy? If it is not indiscreet. I thought about lying to him, inventing a complete story, but there was something in his eyes, something sincere that disarmed me. Family problems, I said finally. Half-truth. My son and I do not get along well. Ray nodded. He drank coffee. Family is complicated, right? My boys left 10 years ago. At first they called every week, then every month. Now, if they call it Christmas, it is a lot. His voice broke a little. One works a lifetime to give them something better, and when they achieve it, they forget where they come from, who raised them. He looked at his cup, but I do not blame them. They have their lives, their families. I am just the old man left behind. I understood perfectly, because I was also the old man left behind. Only my son did not leave. He locked me up. Mornings with Ray became my routine. I arrived at 7. Pot coffee. Conversations about everything and nothing. He told me about his job as a mechanic. 35 years repairing cars. I retired 5 years ago. Now I do not know what to do with so much free time. My hands ask for work, but my body says no. I told him lies, disguised truths. I told him I had been an accountant, that I worked my whole life in numbers, that I lost my wife recently. That was true. The pain of losing your partner never goes away, does it, Mr. Eddy? He said one day. No, I replied. Just, you learn to live with it. And it was true. The pain for Grace was there, always. But with Ray sitting in his humble kitchen drinking cheap coffee, it hurt less. Because someone understood. Someone listened. Something Charles never did. If you are listening to my story, please tell me in the comments where you are watching us from. Knowing that there are people out there who understand this pain gives me strength to keep telling it. One afternoon, we were sitting on his porch. The sun was setting, orange and red. Ray was smoking a cigarette. I just watched. Do you know what is the hardest part of getting old, Mr. Eddy? He asked suddenly. What? Realizing that you were invisible to the people you loved most. My children. I thought we were close, that they looked for me because they loved me. But they only looked for me when they needed something. Money, advice, help, and when I stopped being able to give them, they stopped looking for me. He exhaled smoke. Family right. It breaks your heart in ways no one else can. I felt a lump in my throat, because Ray had just described exactly what I felt with Charles. Invisible. Useful only when I served for something. Disposable when I stopped functioning. With Ray, I discovered something I had forgotten. Real friendship, without an agenda, without masks. He did not know who I really was. He did not care if I had money or companies or important last names. To him, I was Mr. Eddy, the quiet neighbor who drank coffee and listened to his stories. And I was more myself with him than with anyone in years. With Charles, there was always tension, expectations, mutual disappointment. With partners, there was business, interests, professional masks. With Eleanor, there was affection, but also hierarchy. She was the employee, I the boss. But with Ray, we were equals. Two old men alone sharing coffee and time. Nothing more, nothing less. And it was enough. It was more than I had in a long time. It was human, real, alive. But my life was double. By day, I returned to the mansion before Charles arrived. I changed. I put on my pajamas. I lay down. I acted the role of the defeated old man. Charles came every 2 or 3 days, always with that face of fake concern. "How are you, Dad?" I answered him with a weak voice. "Tired, son. Very tired. Do you need anything?" "No, nothing." He checked the house, the cameras, as if looking for evidence of, what? Escape. He never found anything. Because I was careful, I erased my tracks, and then he left. "Take care, Dad." And the locks activated again. And I waited. An hour, 2, and I went down to the basement. I returned to my true life, the one in the neighborhood. Ray's life, the life of freedom. The double life exhausted me, but it also kept me alive, with purpose. Charles thought he was destroying me slowly, that isolation would break me, that eventually I would sign whatever he wanted, I would do whatever he ordered. But he was achieving the opposite. Every day that passed free, really free in that neighborhood, the stronger I felt, the clearer I thought, the more determined I was, and a question grew in my mind like a malignant tumor. Why? Why did Charles lock me up? It was not just cruelty. There was a plan. There had to be. And I needed to discover it, because something in my gut told me this was not just about controlling me. It was about something bigger, something that could destroy everything I built, and I was not going to allow it. Not without fighting. Not without understanding first. What the hell was happening? One night, Ray asked me something that froze me. "Mr. Eddy, are you running from something?" I looked at him, surprised. "Why do you say that?" "Because I see it in your eyes. The same fear I saw in the mirror when my children stopped calling, as if you were waiting for something bad to happen, or that it already happened." I swallowed saliva. "I am not running, Mr. Ray. I am looking for answers." "To what?" "To why the family one loves is sometimes the one that hurts you the most." He nodded. He understood. He asked no more questions. He just put his hand on my shoulder, and that simple gesture, that human contact, without expectations, almost made me cry. Because it was something Charles never gave me. Humanity. And I was not there just for freedom. I was starting to wonder why Charles locked me up. And that question would lead me to discover something horrible. It was a Thursday afternoon. I had been living this double life for 2 weeks. I was in the little house organizing some old boxes that Grace and I left years ago. Clothes, books, documents without importance. Or so I thought. Until at the bottom of a box I found a folder. Manila. Old. I opened it. Financial statements. Of the company. But I had not seen these before. I checked the dates. From 3 months ago. When Grace was still alive. When I still went to the office regularly. I started reading. The numbers swam in front of my eyes at first, but then they began to take shape. Transfers. Large ones. To a company called A&B Consultants. I'd never heard that name. I looked for more papers. More transfers. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some months. Millions. How did this get here? And then I remembered. Charles was at the mansion months ago, with papers. Maybe he left this by mistake. Or maybe Grace kept it, knowing that something was not right. My hands were shaking while I reviewed every page. The numbers did not add up. Consulting services I never authorized. Contracts I did not recognize. Recurring payments to this shell company. A&B Consultants. What the hell was it? I looked for more. In another box, I found more documents, these more recent, from a month ago, after Grace's death. The transfers had increased, double, triple, as if someone had accelerated the theft, knowing that no one was watching. And then I saw something that froze my blood, a signature on a service contract. The signature said, approved by Charles Anderson, Belgrave, financial director. My son, my own blood, he was diverting money from the company. And I had signed powers of attorney, giving him total authority. I myself opened the door for him to rob me. That night I could not sleep. I tossed and turned in the bed of the little house, looking at the ceiling, the wooden beams, the cobwebs in the corners, and I thought, if Charles is stealing, locking me up makes sense. While I am isolated, he has total control. No one questions him. No one checks his movements. But I needed more proof. I needed to understand how deep this went. The next day I made a decision. I was going to go to the offices. Not as Mr. Arthur Anderson, as Mr. Eddie Vance. The invisible neighbor, the old man no one notices. I dressed in the simplest clothes I had, worn blue jeans, faded plaid shirt, old baseball cap I found in a drawer. I looked in the mirror, unrecognizable, perfect. I left the little house. I took the bus. I had not been on one for decades. And I headed downtown, to my company, to see what the hell my son was doing. The Anderson Logistics building rose in front of me. 20 floors of glass and steel. I built it. Every office, every desk, every dream materialized there. I entered through the main door. The security guard did not even look at me. To him, I was just another old man. I moved through the lobby. I took the elevator. I went up to the executive floor, the 19th, where the main offices were, mine, Charles's, the meeting rooms. I got off the elevator. The hallway was empty. It was 4 in the afternoon. I walked slowly, stuck to the wall, like a thief in my own company. And then I saw them. Through the glass of a meeting room, Charles, and her, Pamela Owens, the executive secretary. 25 years in the company, always efficient, always discreet. They were leaning over papers, talking, too close, too intimate. And then Charles laughed. He leaned in. He kissed her. My stomach churned. Not from morality, from understanding. This was not just business. It was personal. It was complicity. I stayed there, hidden behind a column, observing, waiting. 10 minutes later, they left the room. They walked down the hallway, together, speaking in low voices. I stuck closer to the wall. They passed 3 feet from me. They did not see me. I heard fragments. Tomorrow I transfer the rest. When the old man is completely out of the way, then we can move everything to the accounts. They walked away. They entered Charles's office. My old office, the one I occupied for 40 years. The door closed. I stood there paralyzed. The words echoed in my head. When the old man is out of the way, the old man, me, his father, out of the way, like trash, like an obstacle. My heart was beating so hard I thought it was going to explode. My chest burned. Tears wanted to come out, but I held them back. Not here. Not now. I needed more. I needed proof. During the following days, I became a ghost. I entered the building dressed as a worker, as a visitor, as no one. I observed. I listened. I learned. I saw Charles meeting with board members. I heard how he planted doubts about me. My father is not well. His mental health has deteriorated. He forgets conversations. He gets confused with dates. Lies. All lies. But said with such conviction that people believed him. Why not? He was his son. Why would he lie about his own father? I saw documents on unoccupied desks, altered contracts, signatures that looked like mine but were not, forgeries, duplicate checks, systematic embezzlement. Charles was not stealing impulsively. This was planned. Structured. It had been going on for years. Maybe since before Grace's death. Maybe since he entered the company. And I was so busy trusting my son that I never saw the snake growing in my own nest. One afternoon I entered Martin's office, my assistant of 30 years. He was not there, but his computer was. Turned on, the screen showed an email from Charles to the board members. Subject: Update on Mr. Arthur's health. I read. Every word was a dagger. I regret to inform you that my father has had several episodes of confusion. His personal doctor, a lie I did not have. A new personal doctor recommends that he retire completely from operations. For the good of the company and for his own safety, I propose that I temporarily assume the executive presidency until the situation is resolved. Until he dies, he meant. Until he disappears. Until he signs everything over to his name and stops being a problem. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. Destroy the screen. But I held back. I took photos with a disposable phone I bought. Evidence? I needed evidence. It was not enough to know. I needed to prove. I investigated A&B consultants. It was not difficult. With my old computer in the little house, slow internet but functional, I searched public records. The company was registered 3 years ago. Owners, Charles Anderson Belgrave and Pamela Owens. There it was, black on white. My son and the secretary. Partners. They created a shell company to divert funds from my company to their pocket. Millions. Over 3 years. How did I not see it? Because I trusted. Because he was my son. Because I never thought blood could betray like that. I searched more. I found bank accounts. Properties bought in the name of the shell company. An apartment in the upscale district. A house in the countryside. All paid with stolen money. My money. The sweat of 50 years of work, converted into luxuries for my traitor son and his lover. But the worst came later. I found a document in the medical files Charles had presented to the board. A psychiatric diagnosis. It said I suffered from severe cognitive deterioration with episodes of paranoia and persecutory delusions. Signed by a certain Dr. Hector Fuentes. I'd never heard that name. I never visited that doctor. It was fake. All fake. Charles invented a medical diagnosis to justify my forced retirement, so that when he locked me up, as he eventually planned to make permanent, no one would ask questions. Poor Mr. Arthur lost his mind. How lucky that Charles is taking care of him. What a perfect lie. What absolute betrayal. And the worst, what really destroyed me, is that he planned it while Grace was dying. While I cried for her death, he calculated my destruction. I returned to the little house that night with a folder full of evidence. Photos, documents, printed emails, bank records, everything. I put it on the table. I looked at it, and something in me broke. I did not cry. The pain was too deep for tears. It was as if I had been emptied from the inside. My son, my only blood, the boy I carried in my arms, the man I gave everything to, my company, my trust, my love. He had betrayed me in the vilest way. He did not just steal my money. He stole my dignity, my freedom. He planned to steal my sanity by declaring me insane. And eventually he would steal my life. Because why would a locked-up old crazy man accidentally die? No one asks questions. I understood everything. And the understanding was worse than the ignorance. Because now I knew. My son locked me up to destroy me, to erase me, to keep everything. And he almost succeeded. I sat in that humble kitchen until dawn, looking at the evidence, thinking. Charles thought of everything. He was meticulous, patient, intelligent, but he made a mistake. He did not know about the tunnel. He did not know that I could get out, that I could investigate, that I could discover his plan. And now that I knew, now that I had proof, only one thing was missing, deciding what to do. I could go to the police, but Charles was my son. Send him to prison. Did I really want that? I could confront him. But he was younger, stronger. He had control of everything. He could destroy the evidence and declare me crazy. Or Or I could be smarter, more patient, play his own game, make him believe he won, and then give him the surprise of his life. In that moment, I knew. If I did not do something, my son would keep everything, and I would lose not only my company, but my dignity, and that I was not going to allow. Charles wanted war. Well, he would have war, but one he never saw coming, because I built this company. And I also know how to destroy whoever tries to steal it from me, even if it is my own blood. The idea came in the early morning. I was sitting in the little house, looking at all the evidence scattered on the table. Photos, documents, numbers, everything there. But having proof was not enough. I needed more. I needed to see him in action. I needed recordings, confessions, something irrefutable that not even the best lawyer could twist. And for that, I needed to be where Charles could not see me, where I could observe him, listen to him, document every move without him suspecting. How? Then I saw it. A crumpled paper in the trash can, a flyer, cleaning staff wanted, night shift, outsourced service company. And there it was, the answer. If I wanted to prove everything, I needed to be where he did not see me. I needed to be invisible. I needed to become what I already was to him. Nothing. The next day I went to the offices of City Cleaning Services, a small place in an industrial area. The receptionist looked at me with boredom. How can I help you? I came for the job, night cleaning. She gave me an application. I filled it out with a trembling hand. Name, Eddie Vance. Age, 75. Experience, domestic cleaning. References, none. The supervisor interviewed me, a heavy guy with a coffee-stained shirt. Have you worked in cleaning before, Mr. Eddie? All my life, sir, in houses, small offices. Why are you looking for a job at your age? My pension is not enough, and I can still work. He looked me up and down, evaluating. He saw a needy old man. Perfect. All right, you start Monday, shift from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., Anderson Logistics Building. Do you know it? I almost choked. I've heard of it. It pays $100 a night. Does it work for you? Yes, sir. It works for me. I signed the contract. Eddie Vance, at your service. On Sunday, I prepared myself. I bought a fake beard at a costume store. White, thick glasses with magnification that made my eyes look smaller, a navy blue cap with the cleaning company logo. They gave me the uniform on Friday. Blue pants, blue shirt, reflective vest. I tried it on in the little house. I looked in the mirror. I did not recognize myself. The beard completely changed my face. The glasses hid my eyes. The cap covered my forehead. The work clothes made me look common, ordinary, invisible. I practiced walking differently, more hunched, dragging my feet a little, as if my knees hurt. I practiced speaking differently, a higher voice, more submissive. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Excuse me, sir. The old businessman disappeared. In his place remained Mr. Eddie, the janitor, the invisible man, the perfect spy. On Monday at 8 o'clock at night, I entered through the service door of Anderson Logistics, my building, the one I built brick by brick 50 years ago. But now I entered through the back, like the help. The cleaning supervisor gathered us all. There were 6 of us, all older, all tired, all invisible. You guys clean from the 15th to the 20th floor. Offices, bathrooms, hallways, everything. You have 6 hours. Whoever finishes early can leave. They gave us carts, brooms, mops, cleaning products that smelled of cheap chemicals. And an important rule. Do not touch anything on the desks. Do not read papers. Do not use computers. If we catch you, we fire you and call the police. Understood. We all nodded. Understood. We went up in the service elevator, small, rusty. It smelled of grease and old sweat. I used this elevator once in my life, to inspect it when it was installed. Now it was my only access. The irony burned me. The 19th floor, executive offices, my territory. For 40 years I walked these hallways as the owner. Now I pushed a cleaning cart as a servant. I started with the bathrooms, cleaning toilets, mirrors, floors. The smell of disinfectant made me dizzy. My hands that signed million-dollar contracts, were now scrubbing stained porcelain. I finished the bathrooms. I went out into the hallway, and then I saw him. Charles, leaving his office. Dark gray suit, perfect tie, phone to his ear, talking. He walked straight toward me. My heart stopped. I froze. Pushing the cart, head down, he passed. 3 feet from me. He did not look at me, not even once. He kept talking on the phone. Yes, the old man thing is under control. Tomorrow I present the medical report to the board. He walked past. He went down the stairs, disappeared, and I stood there, paralyzed, my own son, 3 feet away, and he did not see me. To him, I was nothing, less than nothing. An old janitor pushing a cart, invisible. That is how he saw me, as nothing. The pain was physical, as if I had been punched in the chest. I had to lean on the cart not to fall. I breathed. Once, twice, 3 times. Tears wanted to come out, but I held them back. Not here. Not now. This was what I needed to see. This was the truth. For Charles, I did not exist as a person, only as an obstacle, as a signature on documents, as a name on bank accounts. And now that he had neutralized me, I was completely irrelevant. He could walk right next to me and not see me, because he never really saw me. Not when he was his father, even less now that I was nothing. That night, I cleaned his office. My old office. I entered with the cart. The lights were off. I turned on only one. The desk lamp. The same desk where I worked for 30 years. Now it had photos of Charles, with Pamela, in expensive restaurants, on beaches, trips paid with stolen money. There was not a single photo of me, nor of Grace, as if we'd never existed. But that night I did not just clean. While I wiped the desk, I took photos with the disposable cell phone hidden in my pocket. Documents left in plain sight. Contracts. Transfers. While I emptied the trash can, I rescued crumpled papers. Drafts of emails, notes with numbers. I kept them in my vest. While I mopped near the conference room, I left my cell phone recording hidden behind a plant. The next day I would retrieve it. That is how the nights passed. Cleaning, observing, documenting, being invisible. And with every night I gathered more proof, more evidence, more ammunition for when the moment came, because the moment would come. And when it came, Charles would discover that the old man he locked up was not as dead as he thought. One night I was cleaning the hallway when I heard shouting. It came from Charles's office. I got closer. The door was ajar. I looked. Charles was standing in front of a young employee, Martin Jr., the son of my assistant Martin, 25 years old, recent graduate. Charles had him cornered against the desk. "Is this what I pay you for?" "To bring me garbage." He threw some papers on the floor. "Pick them up and do it again, right this time." The boy bent down. Trembling, he picked up the papers. "I'm sorry, Mr. Charles. I thought that. I do not pay you to think. I pay you to obey." Charles pushed him. The boy almost fell. He ran out, with tears in his eyes. Charles stayed there, breathing heavily. Then he smiled, as if he had enjoyed the humiliation. And I saw it. I saw the monster my son became. Or maybe he always was, and I never wanted to see it. But the worst came later. One night, around 11, I was cleaning the 18th floor when I heard laughter. It came from the main elevator. The doors opened. Charles and Pamela came out, hugging, laughing, drunk. They walked toward Charles's office. They were kissing, his hands on her waist, hers on his neck. They were not hiding. They did not care. They entered the office, closed the door. The light went off. The sounds that followed were clear. I stayed in the hallway, with the mop in my hand, listening to my son with his mistress. In the office I built, spending money I earned, destroying the legacy I left, and rage burned me inside. But I did not move, because I was also recording. Everything, every sound, every laugh, every piece of evidence of his betrayal, not only to me, to his company, to his employees, to everything. 3 weeks being a janitor, 3 weeks of humiliation, of invisibility, of pain, but also of learning. One night, I was cleaning near the conference room when Charles entered. With 2 other executives, they were talking. I kept mopping, as if I did not exist. My father said Charles, and I stood still, listening. My father was a great man. He built this company from nothing. The executives nodded, but now he is not the same. The Alzheimer's is advancing. Sometimes he does not recognize me. Other times he has violent episodes. It is heartbreaking. His voice broke. Fake, completely fake, but he acted perfectly. That is why I decided to care for him at home, with nurses, where he is safe. The executives looked at him with sympathy. You are a good son, Charles. I only do what he would do for me. He smiled, sad, perfect, and me. I wanted to scream, report him right there. But I held back, because this moment of fake nostalgia was just that. Acting. Preparation for when he would declare me legally incompetent and take everything. But his acting also gave me something. Certainty. That there was no hope. That my son was lost. And that what I had to do without mercy. And then the day arrived. Friday. Extraordinary shareholders meeting. The summons said, urgent decisions regarding the future of the company. I knew what it meant. Charles would present my incapacity. He would ask for total control. And the shareholders, convinced by weeks of lies, would give it to him. That day I entered the building at 7 in the evening, before the normal time. The uniform on, the beard, the glasses, the cleaning cart ready. But in the cart, hidden under rags and cleaning products, were all my proofs, documents, flash drives with recordings, photos, everything. I went up to the 19th floor. The meeting was at 8. I entered the empty conference room. I placed everything in my cart, ready, prepared, and I waited, outside, in the hallway, pushing my cart, being invisible, one last time. Because when I entered that room, when I took off the beard, when Charles saw me, the invisible would become visible, and I would give him the surprise of his life, or of his death. It depended on how you looked at it, because I did not come to negotiate. I came to destroy, as he tried to destroy me, but with a difference. I had the truth on my side, and the truth. The truth always wins. Eventually, 8 o'clock sharp, the shareholders started arriving. Expensive suits, leather briefcases, whispered conversations. They entered the conference room. 12 people, the main ones, those who decided the future of the company. My company. Charles arrived last. Black suit, navy blue tie, briefcase in hand, confident smile. Pamela was with him. Business dress, high heels, folders in her arms. They entered together. The door closed. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. I heard muffled voices. Then I started. I pushed my cart toward the door. I knocked. Softly. No one answered. I knocked harder. Yes. Charles's voice, annoyed. I opened the door. I pushed the cart inside. Excuse me, gentlemen, I came to clean. 12 pairs of eyes looked at me, annoyed, interrupted. Charles raised his hand, irritated, like someone shooing away a fly, and my final performance began. Charles was standing at the front of the room. PowerPoint presentation behind him. Charts, numbers, his face in serious mode. Professional. As I was telling you, my father, Mr. Arthur, unfortunately, is no longer in a condition to run this company. A photo of me appeared on the screen. Old, haggard, taken who knows when. I look like a corpse. His mental health has deteriorated significantly. Here you have the medical diagnosis. He showed papers. Fake. Signed by specialists. Progressive Alzheimer's. Psychotic episodes. Inability to make decisions. The shareholders looked at the screen. They shook their heads. Sad. Understanding. For the good of the company that my father built with so much effort, I propose that I formally assume the presidency, not as personal ambition, but as filial duty, to protect his legacy. He spoke like a politician, like a savior, like a hero. And I pushed my cart, slowly, toward him. I passed between the chairs, between the shareholders. No one looked at me. They just wanted me to finish and leave. I reached the front, right next to Charles. He kept talking. I know it is a difficult decision, but he looked at me annoyed, like someone looking at a cockroach. Excuse me, we are in an important meeting. His voice was cutting. Superior, if you do not mind, clean later, please. He made a gesture with his hand, dismissing me. And I stood there still looking at him, really looking at him. His eyes, my eyes, full of disdain, of superiority, of cruelty. My son, my blood, my mistake. I stopped pushing the cart. I straightened up, and I began. Slowly. First the cap. I took it off. I left it on the cart. The shareholders started to frown, confused. Charles, too. What are you doing? I told you to. But he fell silent, because I was already taking off the glasses, the thick ones, the ones that distorted my eyes. I left them next to the cap. The silence began to grow, heavy, dense, like toxic fog. The shareholders looked at each other. Something was happening, but they still did not know what. Charles stared at me. There was something in his face, confusion, a hint of recognition, but not yet. Not completely yet. I reached for my chin. I found the edge of the fake beard, and I pulled, softly. It peeled off with an almost inaudible sound, like skin ripping off. I held it for a moment, white, fake, dead. I let it fall, to the floor, and then the world stopped. A shareholder gasped. Another dropped his pen. A third stood up. Everyone looked at me, recognizing me. My God, it cannot be. Mr. Arthur. And Charles. Charles turned white. Completely white, as if he had seen a ghost. And perhaps he had seen one. The ghost of the father he tried to bury. The silence was absolute. No one breathed. No one moved. We just looked at each other. Charles and I, father and son, victim and executioner. The roles confused now. Hello, Charles. My voice sounded different, without the submissive tone of Mr. Eddy, with the authority of 50 years of leadership, surprised to see me write. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, like a fish out of water. Dad, what? How? How did I get out of the prison where you locked me? I finished his question. That is a long story. But we have time. We all have time. I looked at the shareholders. Their faces showed shock, absolute confusion, because what my dear son was about to present to you is a lie built over months, to rob me, to destroy me, to erase me from the history of my company. The emphasis on my echoed in the room. Charles took a step back. He stumbled over his own chair. You thought you could lock me up, right, son? I took a step toward him. He took another back, that you had me controlled, like an old dog that is no longer useful, that no longer has teeth, that just waits for death. Another step. You installed locks in my house. You blocked my phone. You fired the woman who raised you. You isolated me. You watched me. You erased me. My voice rose, every word a hammer. And while I was locked up, you were here. Stealing, lying, forging documents, creating shell companies, diverting millions, the shareholders murmured. Charles shook his head. No, Dad, I did not. You did not. What, Charles? You did not lock me up. You did not rob me. You did not invent that I am crazy to keep everything. I turned toward the cart, because I have proof. All the proof, and I started taking things out. First, the documents. I threw them on the long table. They landed with dull thuds. Here are the transfers to A&B Consultants, your shell company. I took out more papers, more evidence, filling the table, fraudulent contracts, forged signatures, my signature, by the way, duplicate checks, systematic embezzlement for 3 years, 3 years, Charles, my voice thundered. You started stealing from me since before your mother died. Do you know that? While she was dying, you calculated how much you could steal when I was alone. I took out a flash drive. I put it in the center. Here are the recordings of you and Pamela planning laughing in my office, using stolen money for your trips, your apartments, your luxuries. Pamela stifled a scream. She stood up, tried to leave, but a shareholder blocked the door. Sit down, he ordered. She sat down, trembling. Charles remained standing, immobile, in shock, and this. I took out the last document, the fake one. This is my medical diagnosis, signed by a doctor who does not exist, saying that I have Alzheimer's, that I am crazy, that I am dangerous. I held it up high, all fake, every word, every signature, every seal. I tore it, in two, in four, in pieces. I threw them into the air. They fell like confetti of lies. Charles finally found his voice. Dad, I had to do it. You had to. I exploded. You had to lock me up like an animal. You had to rob me. You had to invent that I'm crazy. I got closer, face to face. I could see the sweat on his forehead, the panic in his eyes. Do you know what is the worst part, Charles? It is not that you stole the money. Money is just paper. It is won. It is lost. I do not care. My voice lowered. More dangerous. More true. The worst is that you locked me up. That you erased me. That you treated me like trash that needs to be hidden. As if the 82 years of my life were worth nothing. As if I, your father, the man who gave you everything, was less than nothing. Tears burned me, but I did not let them fall. That has no price. That is not forgiven. Never. Dad, I can explain. His voice trembled. I had debts. The company needed debts. I laughed, bitterly. Of what, Charles? Of your apartment in the upscale district. Of your country house. Of your trips with your mistress. I pointed at Pamela. She was crying. Do not speak to me of necessity when you were swimming in luxuries paid with my sweat. He tried to speak again. Dad, it is not what it seems. Then tell me, son. Explain to me. Explain to everyone. I extended my arms, pointing to the shareholders. Explain to us how it is not what it seems. How the millions diverted are an accounting error. How locking me up was for my safety. How the fake diagnosis was, what? A misunderstanding. Charles opened his mouth, closed it, opened. Nothing came out. Only broken sounds, dead syllables. Because there was no explanation. There was no justification. There was only truth, raw, brutal, undeniable, and that truth destroyed him more than my words. The chairman of the board stood up. Mr. Robert Sullivan, son of the engineer who built my tunnel, looked at me with horror and respect. Mr. Anderson, what do you wish to do? The question floated in the air. Everyone waited. Charles looked at me, with fear, with pleading, like when he was 5 years old and broke something. Dad, please, he whispered, and for a second, just a second, I saw the child, the one I carried, the one I loved. But then I remembered, the sound of the locks, the days locked up, the lies, the theft, the betrayal, and the child disappeared. Only the monster remained. What do I want to do? I repeated the question. I looked at Charles. I really looked at him, and something in my chest broke. Definitely. I want my son. My voice broke. I breathed. I continued. I want my son to remain locked up. Deadly silence, but this time I looked directly into his eyes, those eyes that were once mine, this time by the law. And then I said the words that sealed his fate, the words I had practiced, the words I knew were right, but hurt like knives. Gentlemen of the board, I file formal charges against Charles Anderson Belgrave and Pamela Owens for fraud, embezzlement, forgery of documents, and kidnapping. The word fell like a bomb. Kidnapping. Because that is what it was. He locked me up against my will. He deprived me of freedom. For days. With premeditation. I request that the authorities be called, that all accounts related to A and B consultants be frozen, that a full audit be initiated, and that both be handed over to justice." Mr. Robert nodded. He took out his phone. "I will call the police." Charles collapsed. Literally, he fell to his knees. "Dad, no. Please, I am your son. You were—" I replied, and my voice did not shake. "But the son I raised died a long time ago. You are a stranger who carries my last name. And strangers pay for their crimes." The sirens began to sound in the distance approaching, and I stood there, standing victorious, but empty. Because I had won the battle, but I had lost my son, and no victory is worth that price. None. The sirens arrived, 3 patrol cars, blue and red lights flooding the building. The police came up. They entered the conference room. A sergeant, 50-something years old, scarred face, assessed the scene. The scattered documents, the recordings, Charles on his knees, Pamela crying, me standing, calm, defeated but whole. "Who filed the complaint?" "I did," I replied. "Arthur Anderson, owner of this company, and victim of fraud and kidnapping by my son." I pointed to Charles. The sergeant looked at me, recognizing me. "Mr. Arthur, we thought you were sick." "That is what he wanted you to think," I looked at Charles. "But as you see, I am perfectly lucid and ready to testify." The sergeant nodded. He signaled. 2 officers approached Charles. "Charles Anderson Belgrave, you are under arrest for fraud, document forgery, and illegal deprivation of liberty." They read him his rights. Every word a nail in his coffin. The officers lifted him up. Charles did not resist. He was broken, empty, like a puppet without strings. They put the handcuffs on him. The click of the metal was final. He looked at me one last time, and in his eyes I saw, what? Regret, hatred, pleading, everything mixed. "Dad," his voice was a whisper, broken. "Dad, please do not do this." I remained motionless looking at him, and inside, something was tearing apart, because he was my son, my blood, but he was also my traitor, my torturer, my executioner, and I could not save both. I could not save the child he was without condemning the monster he became. "I am sorry, Charles," I said finally, "but this, you chose this." They escorted him toward the door, step by step, moving away, his figure smaller and smaller, and when he disappeared, a part of me died with him, the part that still believed in family, in blood, in unconditional love. That part went with him. Pamela screamed. I did not want to. He forced me. She stood up, hysterical. Charles threatened me. He said he would fire me if I did not help him. The officers surrounded her. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. No, I need you to know I only followed orders." She turned to me, pleading. "Mr. Arthur, you know me? 25 years in this company. I would never do this on my own." But I remembered. The recordings, the laughter, the kisses in the elevator, the complicity. She was not a victim. She was a partner. "Pamela," I said with a tired voice. I watched the recordings. "I heard you plan a laugh? Enjoy. You were not a victim. You were an accomplice. And now you will pay as an accomplice." Her face crumbled. "No, no, please." But the officers took her out. Her screams faded down the hallway. Silence remained. The silence after the storm. Devastating. Absolute. Dead. The shareholders surrounded me. 12 faces with shame, with guilt. Mr. Robert spoke first. "Mr. Arthur, we do not know what to say. He lied to us, to everyone, and we believed him." His voice trembled. "You built this company. You dedicated your life to it, and we were about to take it from you based on lies." The others nodded. Murmurs of apologies. "Forgive us. We did not know. We should have verified." I looked at them. One by one. Some had been with me for years. Others were new. But all had believed Charles over me. "I do not blame you," I said finally, although I did blame them. A little. Charles was convincing, methodical, And I was absent after Grace died. I left room for his lies. I breathed. But now we recover the company. Together, as it should have always been. They nodded, relieved, forgiven, although forgiveness tasted bitter in my mouth. The following days were chaos, full audit, 3 forensic accountants reviewing every transaction of the last 5 years. The numbers that emerged were devastating. Charles and Pamela had diverted more than $1.5 million. $1.5 million. In 3 years. Fake contracts, non-existent services, bribes to suppliers, double billing, triple billing, a maze of fraud so complex we needed weeks to untangle it. And every new discovery was a stab wound. Not for the money. Money is recovered. For the premeditation, for the coldness, for the time Charles dedicated to destroying what I built. While I mourned Grace, he calculated his theft. While I was a prisoner in my house, he moved millions to his accounts. The cruelty was artistic, perfect, unforgivable. I called Eleanor. She answered on the 3rd ring. Mr. Arthur, her voice incredulous. Is it you? Yes, Eleanor, it is me. Silence. Then crying, thank God. I thought that. Charles said you were very sick, that you did not want visitors. I know, Eleanor. I know everything. I breathed. And you were right. About Charles. About everything. You tried to warn me, and I did not listen. Forgive me, she cried harder. No, Mr. Arthur. You do not have to apologize. He is your son. How were you going to know? I should have known. I should have seen. I should have trusted you. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Can you come back? The house needs you. I need you. Of course, Mr. Arthur. I will be there tomorrow. And she was, the next day, as if she had never left, and her presence, her loyalty after everything was the first real comfort I felt in months. The victory should have been sweet. I recovered my company. I unmasked the traitor. Justice was done. The newspapers spoke of me as a hero. 82-year-old businessman dismantles $1 million fraud by his own son, Mr. Arthur Anderson. When blood is no guarantee of loyalty, the covers showed my photo. Serious, dignified, victorious. But I did not feel victorious. I felt empty, hollow, like a burnt tree that still stands but is dead inside. Because yes, I recovered the company, but I lost my son. And no business, no million, no justice is worth that. The victory was bitter, like ash in the mouth, like salt water that does not quench thirst. It only increases it. And I was thirstier than ever, thirsty for something that would never return, thirsty for family, for a son, for love that did not exist. 2 weeks after his arrest, I went to visit him at the detention center where he awaited trial. A gray building, cold, hostile. They searched me, checked, took off belt, watch, everything. They sat me in a room with metal tables, plexiglass dividers, like an aquarium for broken humans. I waited, 10 minutes, 20, and then they brought him. Charles, in an orange uniform, handcuffs, escorted by guards. He looked different, thinner, days-old beard, dark circles, but the eyes were still the same. Cold, calculating, he sat in front of me, the plexiglass between us, as a physical barrier to something that had been broken for years. We looked at each other, father and son, strangers. Hello, Charles, Dad. His voice had no emotion, none, like a robot, like the living dead. And we started the conversation we should have had years ago. The one that maybe would have avoided all this, or not. Maybe nothing would have avoided it. Why did you come? Charles asked, without curiosity, without hope. Just a mechanical question. Because I need to understand, I replied. My voice trembled. I need to know why, Charles. Why did you do it? Why was what I gave you not enough? The company was yours, eventually. Everything was yours. Why steal? Why lock me up? Why destroy everything? He looked at me for a long time, evaluating, deciding how much truth to give me. Finally, he spoke. Because it was never enough. The words fell like stones. Nothing I did was enough for you. I was never enough. What does that mean? It means that all my life I lived in your shadow. The great Arthur Andersen, the one who built an empire from nothing. The hero. The tireless worker. And me, I was the sun, the air, the one who had everything served. His voice rose. Pure poison. You never saw me for who I was, only for what I should be. Your continuation, your legacy. Never, just Charles. His words hit me. That is not true. No. He leaned forward. How many times did you ask me what I wanted to do with my life? How many times did you tell me I could choose my own path? I remained silent, because I did not remember any. You put me in the company at 20, without asking me, assuming it was what I wanted. And you, You never said no. Because you were my father. Because it was expected. Because... He fell silent. He breathed. Because I thought, if I did everything perfect, if I handled the numbers better than anyone, if I grew the company finely, you would see me. Not as your son, as me. Tears threatened. His. Mine. But it never happened. It was always your father would have done it better. Your father did know how to sacrifice. Your father built this. Never. Charles. I'm proud of you. And there it was. The truth. Brutal, painful, real. I never told him I was proud, because I assumed he knew, that it was understood. But nothing is understood. Everything must be said. And I never said it, so you destroyed me out of resentment, I said finally. Not out of necessity, out of hatred. He looked at me, and for the first time he smiled. A smile without joy. Pure bitterness. I destroyed you because I wanted to be free of you. Free of your shadow. Free of the expectation of being someone I never was. He leaned back. And do you know what is the saddest part, Dad? That even destroying you, I was still your shadow. I was still defining myself by you. I was never free. I never will be. We remained in silence, the words floating between us like toxic smoke. And I understood. He hated me, but he also hated himself. For needing me, for not being able to be him without me. For being so entangled in our dysfunctional relationship that destroying me was his only way out. And I contributed, with my silence, with my expectations, with my blindness. I did not turn him into a monster, but I did not help him be a man either. I stood up. Goodbye, Charles. Is that all? He asked. Are you not going to tell me you forgive me, that you still love me? I looked at him, really looked at him. I loved you, the child you were, but that child died long ago, and the man you became. I do not know him, and I do not know if I can love him. I left without turning back, and I knew it was the last time I would see him, because some doors, when they close, never open again, and that is okay. Sometimes it has to be okay. I left that prison, and I knew there was only one house where I wanted to be, and it was not the mansion. That night, I did not return to the mansion. I took a taxi to the neighborhood, to St. Joseph, to the little house Grace and I built as a refuge. The taxi driver looked at me strangely. Here, sir. Are you sure? Surer than ever. I got out. Paid. I walked down the dirt street. My expensive shoes got covered in dust. I did not care. I passed in front of my little house. The lights were off. I continued to the house next door. Ray's house. There was a light in the kitchen, soft music, old country songs. I walked up the porch steps. I knocked on the door. Once, twice. Steps inside. The door opened. Ray appeared. White t-shirt, pajama pants, sandals. He looked at me, surprised. Mr. Eddie? I smiled. Tired, broken, but I smiled. Ray, do you have coffee? He asked no questions. He just opened the door wider. Always neighbor. Always. I sat in his kitchen, the same table where we drank coffee dozens of times. Ray prepared the coffee pot. The smell filled the space. Comforting, real, human. He served me a cup. He sat in front of me and waited. Because Ray was like that. He did not invade. He did not pressure. He was just there. I took a sip. The coffee burned my tongue. It hurt. But the pain was good. It reminded me I was alive. "You look tired, friend," he said finally. "More than tired. You look defeated." I put down the cup. "Not defeated, Ray. Liberated?" He frowned. "Liberated from what?" And there I began. To tell him everything. The complete truth. Who I really was. What my son did. How I defeated him. Every word, every detail. Without masks, without lies. Just raw and painful truth. And Ray? Ray listened, without interrupting, without judging, just listening, like good friends do. When I finished, the coffee was cold. Hours had passed. The clock on the wall marked 3 in the morning. Ray remained silent, processing, understanding. Finally he spoke. "So you are Arthur Anderson, the owner of the biggest company in the South." It was not a question. It was confirmation. I nodded. I was. Now I do not know what I am. And your son. In prison. Awaiting trial. Probably years in jail. It must hurt. Like you have no idea. Ray poured more coffee. Fresh? Hot. And now what? You go back to that mansion. To your businessman life. I looked at my cup. The steam rising, disappearing. Like everything. I do not know, Ray. Honestly, I do not know. But as I said it, I knew. I knew exactly what I wanted. And it was not the mansion. It was not the company. It was nothing I built in 82 years. It was this. This table. This coffee. This friendship without pretenses. This was real. Everything else was a shadow. You know what, Ray? I put down the cup. I looked at him. I think I will stay here. He blinked. Here in the neighborhood. In the little house next door. If you accept me as a permanent neighbor. Mr. Arthur, you have a mansion, a company, a name. Why would you want to live here? Because here I am, free. Truly free. I stood up. I walked to the window. I saw the empty street. The humble houses. The simple life. I spent 50 years building things. Company, mansion, fortune, legacy. And in the end, all that almost destroyed me. My own son betrayed me for those things. And I lost sight of what really matters. I turned toward him. You, Ray, treated me better in 3 weeks than my son in 3 years, without knowing who I was, without wanting anything. Just friendship, humanity, and that. That has no price. That is what I want in the time I have left. No more empires, just life. Ray stood up. He walked toward me. He put his hand on my shoulder, and his eyes of a man who lived, suffered, survived, looked at me with total understanding. Then welcome to the neighborhood, neighbor, forever. And we hugged. 2 old men alone, 2 survivors, 2 friends. And in that hug I found what I searched for all my life without knowing it. Acceptance, without conditions, without agenda, just pure humanity. I cried. For the first time in months. I cried for real. And Ray said nothing. He just held me. Like a brother. Like the family I did not have. Like the son Charles never was. And I knew. This was my house. This old retired mechanic. This pot coffee. This dirt street. This was home. More than any mansion. More than any company. This was real. And the real always wins in the end. The following months were transformation. I sold the mansion to a young family with children. They liked that it had history. They did not know the whole history. Better that way. With that money and with what was recovered from the fraud, I created a fund for the employees, the ones who were loyal to me, the ones Charles humiliated, the ones who deserved more than I gave them. Eleanor received her full pension plus 20 years of bonus. She cried, "Mr. Arthur, it is too much. It is never too much, Eleanor. You saved me. With your warning, with your loyalty. It is the least I can do." The others also received. Martin, the drivers, the guards, everyone, and the company. I put the company in the hands of a trusted team. I stayed as honorary president. Title without power. Perfect. Because I did not want more power. I did not want more control. I only wanted peace, and I found it. In a 2-room house in St. Joseph. One afternoon I was sitting on my porch when Mr. Robert from the board arrived, in his Mercedes, out of place in the neighborhood. He got out. He looked at me. "Mr. Arthur, are you sure about this? More than anything in my life. But you built an empire. You are a legend, and you leave it all for this." He pointed around, disparaging without meaning to. "I am not leaving it, Robert. I changed it. For something better. Better. A 2-room house is better than a mansion. Yes." I looked at him. "Because in that mansion I was alone. Watched. Betrayed. Here. Here I have a friend. I have coffee every morning. I have chats without an agenda. I have peace. Is that not worth more than square footage?" He did not know what to say. He left confused, but I was not confused. For the first time in decades, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I had it. It was not glamorous, it was not impressive, but it was mine, real, true, sufficient. One night, talking with Ray, I told him something that had been cooking in my mind. "Do you know what my true prison was, Ray?" He shook his head. "It was not my house. It was not Charles's locks. It was my hope. My hope that my son loved me as I loved him. That hope kept me blind. It made me sign without reading, trust without verifying, forgive without limit, and it almost destroyed me." Ray nodded. "Wise. A father's love is like that, unconditional. But sometimes that love makes us stupid." "Exactly. And when that hope broke, when I accepted that Charles would never love me as I needed there, I was freed." I looked at him. True freedom is not physical, Ray. It is emotional. It is letting go. It is accepting that some people, even if they are your blood, cannot give you what you need. And that is okay, because other people, even if they are strangers, can. And I am one of those people. I smiled. "You are more family than my own blood, Ray, because family is chosen. Blood just happens to you, and sometimes it happens badly. I often think of Grace. What would she say? What would she think of everything? I visited her grave every Sunday. I brought her flowers. I talked to her. Honey, I did the right thing right." Silence was my answer. But one Sunday, when the wind moved the leaves of the tree over her tombstone, I felt something, a presence, an approval, and I knew. Grace would be proud, not that I destroyed Charles. That would hurt her, but that I survived, that I did not let myself be destroyed, that I found dignity in defeat, peace in loss, home in simplicity. "You were always right, honey," I whispered, "about the tunnel, about keeping it ready, about dangers changing but always returning, but also about something else, about how what is important is not what you build. It is who you build it with, and I built wrong. With you it was perfect. But with Charles, I built castles on sand, and the tide took them. But now I build differently, smaller, more real, truer, and I think you would like it. Today I'm 83 years old, one more than Grace when she left. I live in a 2-room house. I drink coffee with Ray every morning at 7. We talk about everything and nothing. His children still do not call. Mine is in prison. But we are here, surviving together. The company runs without me. Better, some say. I do not go anymore. I do not need to. The money I need is little. A modest pension I pay myself. The rest goes to those who deserve it. Sometimes they ask me, the reporters, the curious, if I visit Charles. And no, I do not. Because forgiving is not forgetting. It is not reconciling. It is letting go. It is saying, you took charge of your life and your decisions, and I have mine. It is living in peace with the pain, not eliminating it, living with it. And I live in peace, for the first time in decades. In peace. To you listening until the end, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time, for listening to the story of an old man who lost his son, but found his dignity. And I ask you, and you, have you been betrayed by someone who claimed to love you? By family? By blood? What did you do? How did you survive? Tell me in the comments. Because these stories, these painful truths, connect us. They remind us that we are not alone in suffering. And if this story touched your heart, leave us your like, subscribe to the channel, because here we will continue telling truths that hurt but also heal. Truths about family, betrayal, loss, and about how in the end what really matters is not the blood you are born with, but the family you choose to build. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story. And remember, it is never too late to start over. Never.